Hello, U.S. history students. So this is a very brief presentation dealing with secession. Okay, in the last lesson, we talked about Lincoln's election leading South Carolina to secede. I told you wrong. I said South Carolina and 5 other deep southern states secede. It's actually 6 other deep southern states secede. To secede means to leave the Union. So, real quickly, and there's no worksheet that goes along with this, I just want to review what secession is, who's involved, why it's happening, what it's going to lead to. There's another presentation that goes into much more detail than this. Okay, so be sure you watch that one because that one gives a better timeline. But I just kind of want to review secession with you here real quickly. Now, secession means the formal withdrawal of a state from the union, okay, to leave the union. That is basically what secession means, okay, is to leave the union. It's the formal withdrawal of a state from the union, okay. Now, who's involved? Originally, it's 7 deep South states. You've got South Carolina first, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas, okay. So you've got 7 deep South states. Now, why did they do this? Or when did they do this? 1860, after the election of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, Lincoln's election is the event that causes these states to secede. Why did they secede? Because they were worried Lincoln would abolish slavery. Even though his speeches do not indicate that he wants to abolish slavery, he is very much anti slavery and he has said he wants to stop slavery from spreading. He also gave that speech in 1858 where he said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand. We cannot continue to be half free and half slave." Okay? So, when you say something like that, that is going to put the South on notice. What does he mean? Okay, even though he's saying he just doesn't want to see slavery spread, he also says we can't continue to be half free and half slave. So the South is worried he's going to abolish slavery. Okay, even though, to be honest with you, he has not said that directly. Why do they think they can do this? What justifies this? That idea they freely entered the Union so they could freely leave if they wanted. Okay, when they voted on and ratified the Constitution, they did it on their own. And they assume that they can leave on their own. So this is what's going to justify them seceding. Okay, and don't forget, they also believe in nullification, that if Congress or the president does something they don't agree with, they can simply ignore it. Okay, so between nullification and the fact they entered freely so they can freely leave, that's going to justify them seceding. Then what? Well, after they seceded, they formed their own government, the Confederate States of America, the Confederacy, and they elect Jefferson Davis as their president. Okay, when they leave the United States, they form their own country, the Confederate States of America, and they elect Jefferson Davis as president. Now, they are going to begin to seize Union forts in the South because they see that as their territory. One of those forts is Fort Sumter, which is off the coast of South Carolina. The Confederacy begins to bombard the fort at Fort Sumter. Okay, Lincoln has several options. He's very careful with what he chooses. He could have fought back, but that would have made him appear the aggressor, and he doesn't want to do that. So he votes to resupply the fort. Okay. Now, what ends up happening, okay, is the South attacks the Union troops at Fort Sumter. The South is going to claim Lincoln's resupplying as an act of war, okay, even though he says, no, it's not. I'm just resupplying the fort, okay. I'm sending in blankets and medicine. I'm not sending in reinforcements or weapons or anything like that. I'm just sending necessary, supplies to the troops. But he also says, I'm going to use force to hold the Union together. So when the South opens fire at Fort Sumter, and those are the opening shots of the war, it's not the first official battle, but those are the opening shots of the war. Lincoln responds and says, I'm going to hold the Union together by force. And he calls for volunteers from all the states loyal to the Union. When he calls up for volunteers from states like Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, etc., they end up seceding as well. Arkansas is among those. Okay, so more states secede. Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas are also going to secede and join the Confederacy. And that's going to be the last group to leave and join the Confederacy. And that's going to be the Confederate states that we're going to talk about when we get into the war itself. Okay. So, real quickly, that's secession, just reviewing the key people, the key names involved, reviewing what secession is. Please be sure you watch the other lesson, which deals with secession to Bull Run, and it goes into much more detail and gives a much more detailed timeline of these events. Okay, so that's where we're headed with the next lesson this week.